Welcome to episode 3 of 5 Minute Serverless-First. In this episode, we are going to be talking about a serverless reference application called FreshTracks. We might end up having 2 episodes around this reference application called FreshTracks. In this episode 3, we're going to talk about the architecture of this application, and then we will dedicate episode 4 to give you a demonstration of this application. So what is FreshTracks? FreshTracks was an application that was demonstrated at one of the serverless events that AWS organized. The application itself is relatively simple. You essentially upload and manage a set of GPX files, and these are files that are coming from your GPS device, so it has information about routes, your waypoints. And this application allows you to process these files and then manage them. And if you look at the right-hand side of the screen here, there are a number of services that have gone into creating these applications. And this is to the point that I was making in episode 1. Serverless is not just about functions. We established that serverless is really about functions as a service and a backend as a service. So if you look at the collection of services that went into creating this application, you have step functions, which is a stateful workflow capability within AWS. You have Event Bridge, the messaging service. You have the API gateway. You have, of course, the AWS Lambda, where you write your functions, essentially. You also have Amplify, of course, the Amazon S3, where you upload the GPX files, and then DynamoDB, where you store the processed GPS files. And we are using Auth0 for authentication. In fact, let me go ahead and bring up the architecture diagram here. So this is a single page application written in Vue.js. So somebody can come in and authenticate. I've already talked about Auth0 as the authentication provider. And then somebody can come in and upload. Once they've been authenticated, they can come in and upload one of their GPX files. And the way it gets uploaded is one of the methods here, one of the Lambda functions here generates a signed URL, which allows the client to upload the file to an S3 bucket. Once the file has been uploaded to the S3 bucket, we send a message using Amazon Event Bridge and kick off this workflow. And this workflow essentially processes the GPX file, stores the metadata into DynamoDB, and then uses AWS IoT Core service to then notify the client that this file has been processed completely. So once again, as I said earlier, we of course has a bunch of functions here, but we also have a collection of services commonly referred to as backend as a service, whether it is the event bridge, whether it is the API gateway, whether it is the DynamoDB, or whether it is the IoT Core application. Now, let us very quickly go ahead and look at how this application would look like on the Azure platform. And once again, the Vue application remains the same. No change to that, of course. And here, instead of the API gateway, we have the API management. We're using Auth0 here. We could have used something like Azure AD B2C, but in order to just keep the sample consistent with the original AWS sample, ended up using Auth0. And we're using static sites to build this application here. And right here you can see once the file has been uploaded to the storage account, we used Event Grid to notify or to kick off this durable function, which is the equivalent to the step function here, which in turn processes the file, saves the metadata to Cosmos DB instead of DynamoDB as we saw on the previous slide, and then use the Signal R service to notify the client application that this file has indeed been processed. So this is essentially the reference application. In the next episode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through this application. I'm also going to walk you through the Azure portal and the various services. And I want to call out that all of the services that are shown here, whether it is API management, whether it is Cosmos DB, of course, all of the Azure functions themselves, they're all being configured in a consumption plan, which means that we would only be paying for the resources we use None of the resources here have been provisioned ahead of time. And that's one of the things that I talked about in episode 1. So let's stop the video here and I'll come back and give you a demonstration of this application in the next episode.